Welcome on into GoldSheet TV. I am your host, Eric Pauly, with my co-host, Dan Alexander at Newbie Talks on Twitter. And week 3 is officially in the books, and now it's time for Dan and I to, reflect a little bit on what has happened in the NFL over this past weekend and discuss some Thursday night football. We have some takes on the Packers Lions, so stay tuned and do not go anywhere. I want to tell everybody that on WagerTalk.com, a GoldSheet 30-day all-access package code GS30 brings that price down to $199 for a 30-day all-access. And without further ado, newbie, let's hop right into it. So, looking at the show picks we had last week, I was right on the Chargers there. Newbie with the Texans plus the points, and they get the outright W. That was a beautiful call. Shout out to Robo, our producer, big Texans fan, 9-point dog. Carolina plus 6 as we were recording. We then found out some Bryce Young injury news. That game closed 4.5. I got in at plus 7, minus 120. I can throw that CLV trophy out the window. I'm not even talking about the Chicago Bears, newbie. We're gonna pass that. We're gonna pretend that didn't happen. We're marking you in the scorebooks. Don't worry. And then the Baltimore Ravens teaser. Great call on the Rams, newbie. Baltimore. I don't even want to talk about how that transpired. But newbie, I want to hear from you about some of the looks and what you learned and what you're taking away a little bit from this week before we go into over and under reactions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we promised if I pick the Bears again and they weren't even able to cover 13, that's right. We even had a shiny CLV trophy on the horrible Bears after some people even came in and backed the same side, and they ended up closing even at some shots at 12. Embarrassing, man. It just absolutely embarrassing. So the fact that I came on here, I got to eat a little crow here on a Tuesday morning. I apologize. I hope that you guys listened to Eric when he was telling me, newbie, what the hell are you doing giving out the Bears on this show right now? So I hope you listen to my man alongside me. He tried to talk me out of it. I walked up and placed actual money on the Bears. Any show that I give out here, I bet myself, and that was probably one of the worst bets I've ever placed in my life, Eric. So that one, I guess, countered by the fact that we did get Houston home outright. The Rams leg of the teaser covers, but that Ravens leg is one that I love too. I gave it out on Wager Talk today. Yes, there was the holding in the fourth quarter that definitely should have been called, or towards overtime that should have been called. That was the absolute dagger in the bet, but it should have never been that close. Like, this Ravens offense, part of the handicap for us was they were going to expose the secondary of the Colts like every other team has and probably every other team will. Lamar Jackson had a stretch where he went nearly 15 minutes without throwing a pass downfield. I don't know what is going on with this offense, but they deserve to lose that game even with the holding call. So I'm with you. That one was a brutal beat, but 1-1 again for me, man. I just keep trotting right along with these 1-1 weeks here as far as these side picks go. So I feel it coming. The 2-0 week is coming. Got to be better, but hopefully some folks sprinkled on that money line with Houston. But it was a wild weekend of football, I thought. The Cowboys losing outright.
It was. You have the huge outright losses. If you're a survivor player, most of you probably got screwed if you went with the Ravens, Jaguars, or the Dallas Cowboys there. I went with the Patriots on that one. So I am still alive and well floating. The GoldSheet team on Wager Talk, we ended up with a 6-6 total week for a loss of 2 units, which is not what you love to see. The Chargers did not end up making the car, which would have been a 3% play that we were debating. That would have put it to a slight negative. A slight positive, from a slight negative. Not really losing sleep over these results. I mean, we had a shaky week 1, great week 2, and then a on-point week 3. I think we could have put some things in different places. We had some other leans and looks that just missed the card that did end up hitting. So all we could do is learn from the process and continue moving forward. We have tons of football left. And this time last year, even when I finished number 1 on Sports Memo, I was in the red this time last year. So NFL journey is long, it's grueling, and it could be rewarding. So just need to continue plugging away. But enough on the nonsense. And I do want to just quickly say, with that Ravens game, as much as the Ravens did kind of blow it, they also did not deserve to win that game by margin. So they, move on, chalk it up. The L is the L. That killed 2 plays that the other teaser legs that the GoldSheet team had would have hit, because we had a 3-team and a 2-team with your Rams, newbie. Also with the Packers, that ended up being a great play. But unfortunately for us and whoever else backed the Ravens as a teaser, it just wasn't meant to be on Sunday. Newbie, we saw a team put up 70 points and over 700 yards of offense on Sunday. I don't know what else to say because that in itself basically speaks as many volumes as there's no words to describe it. Like just looking at those numbers describes it all. How real is this Miami Dolphins team as they open as 2.5-point dogs in Buffalo? Before you get into it, I just want to mention while the Miami Dolphins played the Bills well last season all year long, and then in the playoffs, that was a close game with Skylar Thompson under center. It's very different playing in Buffalo in September or October in this case versus January. 2.5-point dogs, a team that put up 70. Is a letdown on the horizon, or are the Dolphins going to keep rolling?
Yeah, that just screams a potential trap spot. Maybe we'll hear about that on Bet On It here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. It'll be dropping Wednesday with our man Marco D'Angelo. So make sure you're subscribed so you can check that out. But yeah, man, 70 points. I mean, it speaks for itself. I think it also speaks to the fact that you're looking at a team in Denver that has just absolutely quit on a quarterback and absolutely quit on a head coach. And I don't blame them. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that with the other breath of being like, can you believe what's going on in Denver? This is something we cautioned you guys about heading into the year. There is no magic cure for what's going on in Denver. And a lot of people put this narrative that Sean Payton was going to be that magic bullet. And it's just not the reality. There is a lot going on behind the scenes there. So yes, it was 70 points. And I'm not trying to discount that. Yes, they're one of the top teams in the league are the Dolphins. But as you said, they're going on the road, taking on the Buffalo Bills. I think that plus 2.5 is shocking. I think that kind of tells me that odds makers in the opening marketplace are kind of thinking what I'm thinking about this Dolphins team is they're flying high. Don't get me wrong, but they have this trip to Buffalo, and Buffalo's defense is playing well. They made Sam Howell look like a Pop Warner quarterback. Dolphins still have another one against the Pats, who stayed within a touchdown against this high-flying offense that can't be stopped. They still have to play the Philadelphia Eagles, who haven't even played a lick of good football and a complete game, yet they're still sitting at 3-0. They have to visit the Chiefs in Arrowhead, who now have the power of Taylor Swift on their side. They have a trip to Baltimore that gets sandwiched at the end of the year against a home game against the Cowboys and a home game against the Bills. Those are probably going to have two pretty big playoff implications for all of those squads. So it has been awesome. I love that 70-point output, and I loved seeing Russell Wilson and the Broncos get rolled up on as much as the other guy. But I don't think the 72 Dolphins have to take the champagne off ice just yet. I don't think that this Dolphins team is maybe as great as the 70-point output would show, because I think that had a lot to do with a Denver defense that just said, yes, it's historic. Don't get me wrong. Kill me in the comments if you want, but not saying I'm not a believer in the Dolphins. I'm just saying don't place any tickets on them to go 16-0 throughout the regular season or 17-0 throughout the regular season. I think that that 72 Dolphins team is still safe, even with the 70-point output from the 2023 version of the Dolphins.
Yes, I obviously am not looking to be in the market to bet any team to go undefeated, but what Miami did, I mean, yes, you could make the excuses, Denver flying back across the country, the humidity in Miami got to them, but like what Mike McDaniel and co did, and just like the speed that this team has on offense, and I see a lot of discourse on it on Twitter from people who are more in tune with the film. They outlined how now there's all these cover two defenses with two safeties back, and basically teams are playing borderline prevent defense almost all the time because they'd rather let you dink and dump, but then bend don't break. When you're in the red zone lockdown, you'll either take 3 points or get a turnover on downs and then let up a touchdown. But the way that the Miami has their team going east to west and kind of revolutionizing, in a sense, how offense is being played right now is just remarkable. Like those Tua no-look flip passes, like obviously on the surface when you watch it on real time on the broadcast, it's just cool. It's a hell of a play design. It's cool. When you watch it in the overhead, the all 22, you see how every lineman is going in one direction, then Tua and the ball carrier slipping into the other direction, creating this like insane, just I don't even know what to actually call it, honestly, but this just insane balance. I'm with you here where I'm not telling anybody, back the Dolphins to win the Super Bowl or to go undefeated, but I don't know how, as an opposing defensive coordinator, fear is not struck in your heart like anytime now you see this Miami team is coming into town, until maybe you see one team, it could be Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills this week, that put maybe a blueprint on how to slow them down together. It also might not come until week 14. It might not even come this season. It might not be until the offseason. But I was not a fan of the Dolphins in terms of making the playoffs this year. I was out on them. I thought that, as you know, every year teams that do make the playoffs don't make the playoffs the year after. I thought Miami would be one of those teams. 3 weeks in, I'll gladly eat my words. Miami Dolphins look legitimate. How legitimate is to be determined. Obviously, injuries and so on and so forth could pile up, but you don't put up 70 points and 700 yards in an NFL football game without doing, one or two things right.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it also helps that you're against the Denver Broncos, who seem like they can't stop anything on the ground. I mean, you want any DFS suggestions? If you're scraping the barrel for running backs, I would even take backup running backs and throw them in your lineup to save some money whenever you're facing off against the Denver Broncos. That run defense is absolutely putrid, and Mostert and Achane combining for 8 touchdowns. They indicated that pretty nicely.
Yeah, 10 touchdown day, beautiful design, deep down the field, running attack, just like a hit them with every which way, and it doesn't even seem like the Dolphins showed them their full hand. I bet you that they have more of those kind of plays up their sleeves. So shout out to Miami. Great time to be a Dolphins fan, and should have a hell of a football game. But I wish they could flex the prime time. Why am I watching Daniel Jones and Geno Smith on Monday night when I could watch Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, and digression aside, though, my overreaction, I know you were looking in the situation where, people are chirping how good are the Dolphins. Are they going to win the Super Bowl? They're going to go undefeated. You're putting water on that. I'm actually backing I want to say this is a huge overreaction because it is just in the numbers here. But I will go on the limb and say, even though they didn't play amazing teams so far, that the Cleveland Browns have the best defense in the National Football League. Holding any National Football League team to 90 yards, 94 yards over the course of 4 quarters is incredible. The numbers that they put up against this Tennessee Titans team, which we knew coming in would have one of the bigger mismatches on the offensive defensive line. And I actually was a fan of backing the Titans because, you have a scrappy team. Great coach and Vrabel taking 3.5 points. Maybe that they will be able to keep a game close like they do. But what this defensive line was able to do, and all across the entire field, without giving Ryan Tannehill any second to breathe at any single situation, did not allow Tennessee to get any semblance of a running game going. It just absolutely wore down a team where you have a sport where one team, like we saw the Dolphins, could put up 720 yards, and the other team in the Tennessee Titans only put up 90 yards. While, again, this Titans offense is not full of any world beaters, and their offensive line is definitely one of the worst in the NFL, I cannot be more impressed with what Jim Schwartz has done. And it's something that is not coming out of the woodwork. Listen to you and I speak all offseason long. You know how high I was on the Cleveland Browns. I'm holding a Browns AFC North ticket, which this matchup will be very important this weekend. I touted the Browns as having one of the best upgrades in defense because of their upgrading coordinators and in personnel. And so far, through 3 weeks, again, I get it, against not the greatest offenses we've ever seen. We'd like to see them do this against Miami, of course. But all things considered, right now, I think Miami's the best defense in football. Newbie, do you need to throw some cold water on this because of the teams that they've played? Or have you been as impressed as I am? Because right now, from a schematic standpoint, with the personnel that they have, and the combination of good secondary, good back end, and an amazing defensive line, like what else could you ask for?
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I would also say their rival there in the AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers, have a pretty damn good defense rocking as well. I mean, the Steelers are quite literally winning games in spite of their offense. So, I think that's just what they do up there. I'd like to see that Ravens defense come along a little bit more. But as far as what the Browns are putting on tape, that defense is for real. That pass rush is just swallowing people up. So I'm with you, man. A lot of sharp tickets were on the Titans last week, and they put those up in smoke. And you can't blame any weather like they did in the first week, what they did against those Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm not going to argue with you. I would also say there's been some nice surprises defensively across the league. A lot of people have been looking to fade the Philadelphia Eagles because of all the injuries that they have. They, made the Buccaneers look pedestrian, and Jalen Carter Carter continues to seem like the absolute steal of the draft. So as far as the upper echelon, I would definitely say that the Browns are sitting at the top, but there's a lot of solid defense being played around the NFL. And I'm wondering, will that kind of fall to the wayside? The offenses maybe pick up a little bit more as we get towards the latter half of the season. But the story to start the NFL has definitely been defense. And at the top of that list, I'm with you. It's the Cleveland Browns.
26 rushing yards allowed, 5 sacks, 68 net passing yards for a total of 94 yards without even forcing a turnover. They held Tennessee to 2 for 12 on third down and just 6 first downs. The Denver Broncos allowed the Miami Dolphins to score 10 touchdowns, and the Cleveland Browns did not even allow the Tennessee Titans to get 6 first downs in that game. I'm beyond impressed for my futures that I have. Myles Garrett, 3.5 sack game. I have him for D Player of the Year. That was a very nice, strong case. I think he's now in second in the NFL in sacks. So hopefully he can continue wrecking games. But this Browns defense, as advertised. And back to that Birds game, I want to touch on in 1 second because obviously you're the Birds fan. I had the Birds in a little makeshift teaser there, but that was because I took them plus the Bengals, the Rams plus 10.5. I took the Birds down to 1.5. I kind of picked and choose like the 6 points in each way. Still got minus 119 odds, so it was a good bet. But the way that they were able to get after Baker Mayfield and that offensive line, like they're going to absolutely dismantle the Commanders on Sunday.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree on that one. The Commanders, the blueprint definitely got put out by what Sean McDermott and the Bills did for sure. So no argument here, man.
No argument, but shout out to the Birds, big win, cash me a ticket. So thank you to the Philadelphia Eagles. But moving on, so something that we want to discuss a little bit, obviously on the topic of football and betting, but not necessarily game breakdown. So much discourse on Twitter between in every sport, sharp action, square action, betting splits, ticket splits. Half of it probably BS, the other half definitely BS. But obviously a lot of ways to go about this. We're betting sports betting with a break-even percentage on minus 110 bets of 54%. You're hitting 55% of the bets. You're making good money, which means you can lose 45% of the time. But newbie, there were a couple of games that had some crazy good like line movement. For example, our Panthers, I got them at plus 7/120 with the GoldSheet, close at 4.5, lose by 10, no dice. Commanders looked like they were sitting 6.5 a week. People were betting it would get to 7, never got to 7, went the other way. Commanders got absolutely dominated. Broncos, everybody took the 7 to start, went down to all the way to 6 before game time. The rest is history there. What have you noticed throughout, maybe not just this past week or the whole season, or if you want to focus on just last week, on some of these things between, sharp action and then also the quote unquote sharp action, which may or may not be sharp?
Yeah, and this all stemmed from somebody reaching out saying that they love the show on Twitter. You can follow me at Newbie Talks, NEUBYTALKS. I love going back and forth with you. Somebody reached out and just said, hey, I love what you guys do. I'm wondering where you find sharp action and how I can find some so that I can tail it. And I just cautioned the guy, hey, I can tell you where to look. I can tell you which books to track on the WagerTalk live odds screen if you want to be able to track where there's maybe sharp money coming on, what books cater to sharp bettors. However, if you're just trying to tail sharp action, there's a podcast that I do. It's called the Cash Considerations Podcast alongside with my man Dave Sharapan. And on that, he always says a saying, nobody knows squadoosh, although, maybe a little bit colorful at times. This is a guy who was behind the counter taking sharp action for many years, and something that he has learned and really everyone should probably know is, even sharp bettors who are hitting that 53, 54%, that means nearly half of their tickets are still losing. There is no such thing as tail the sharp action and always win. This weekend was the absolute zenith of it. If you were a person who just wanted to find out, what's the sharp bettors on, what are the bag guys going, who's placing big time bets and putting sharp action on where, if you tailed the sharp action this weekend, you went over. Washington, a sharp play. Denver, a sharp play. Atlanta, Las Vegas, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The list goes on and on, but those were the main 5 that I saw out there that the line just kept crashing on the other side, indicating that there was a lot of money pouring in, and that's even on the opening line as well, which indicates, people who handicap their own numbers, people who are originating plays that others are tailing. That's where their money went. and none of them won. So while some people really want to know where's the sharp action, you know what I mean? I think the better thing to do is practice good bankroll management and have multiple outs. Those are two way more important things than knowing where the bag guys are taking their duffel bags and putting their money on. I would much rather have you practicing good bankroll management so you're not overextending yourself. And even if you're losing around half of your plays, towards the end of the season, if you're cashing on some dogs, if you're not trying to get back on the late game and betting 5 units when you should only be betting 1, at the end of the year, you're way more likely to be turning a profit than just trying to tail, oh, what are the sharps on? Where's the steam going? I caution people about that all the time. Bet smart, and betting smart to me isn't just finding out where these sharp guys are on. Sharp guys are losing too, folks. So find a better way to manage your bankroll than just trying to find out who's taking their duffel bags and what teams they're putting the money on. Because you went over and are looking for a new bankroll if you trailed all the sharp action this last weekend.
And also on that point, like I said, the winning percentage for minus 110, the break even at 52.4%, you're hitting above that, you're making money, but it also means you're losing such a high percentage of the time. Another part of that too is all of it is number dependent. Like this week, like you said, all those games, you could throw the CLV trophy in the garbage, to make yourself feel better. But honestly, you could just wipe your ass with those tickets because they're all losers. It didn't matter what number you got it at. But with that being said, the sharps action that's coming in, if they're betting Denver +7s, for example, and they're saying to their following, or they just have in their originating numbers that this is only good at 7, it's not good at 6 or 6.5. I'm only taking it at 7 because it's covering that key number of 7, and it loses. But you catch wind of this and you say, okay, I know that this really sharp group or this person, I really respect their opinion, and I saw the numbers move. I watched whatever they release, and the number on the screen pops up, and they all turn red, and everything changes. That I'm going to tail their bets. That doesn't work in a point spread sport because they're betting the 7 because 7 is an important number. You're betting the 6. The 6 does not satisfy the same conditions as the 7 in terms of the key numbers in football. And that 6 is a difference between losing and pushing, or losing and winning, or pushing and winning. So as much as there's obviously this allure to chasing steam in some circumstances and aligning yourself with the quote unquote right side, I understand the merit for that. I understand the thought process for that. But you have to understand that, number one, the price rules everything. The number rules everything. +7 and +6.5 from the same bettor giving out. Like you saw the 7 given out from a bettor you respect, but the number 6.5, you take the 6.5, you could lose that bet while that person pushes or that person wins. So just another PSA. I think you're making some great points, Snoopy. I just want to follow that up with is a number means everything. So if you're not even getting the same number in the first place, it's all moot anyway.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it any better, man. Yeah, and that's the point. Was Atlanta a good bet? Sure, it was before it got to 3. It didn't end up winning, but it made sense. Was Washington a good bet? Maybe that one was never really a good bet, and Denver surely was never really a good bet. But I'm right there with you, man. It makes a lot more sense, and it's all about getting around those key numbers. And again, if you get those key numbers, more likely than not, you're going to be a winning bettor at the end of the year. But as far as I just find it funny. Where's the sharp action? What are the sharps on? Sharps have lost plenty of bets, and they will continue to lose plenty of bets. So the whole pro versus Joe thing, really what it comes down to is be a smart bettor. You don't have to be a professional bettor pulling off the rubber band on plays, whether you're betting $10 or $10,000. It's all about the tenets of, good bankroll management, get the best number available and never chase. That's way more important than being on the right side.
And the whole concept of closing line value, like obviously this gets debated ad nauseum. I'm a huge believer in closing line value. Is if you're getting a bet at a number that's better than the market over time, you continue to do so, you'll hopefully mathematically have success, but you still have to be on the right side. Again, an example, the Texans, right? You could have gotten 10 in the beginning of the week all the way down to 7 right before kickoff. You would have won every number. That would have been great. However, in the same vein, if you're betting Carolina +7 and they're closing +4.5, right? 7 is a key number in football with the push, and you got it at -120, so you're not paying up to get that extra, paying the juice to get a extra half point or so on and so forth. Over time, if you continue to be taking bets that in the NFL or college football or any big major sport at 7 when the line closes at 4.5, you will be profitable. So if you did lose those bets, we're not saying, reevaluate your entire process. You're clearly on the right track. I'm not losing sleep over that kind of bet. You shouldn't lose sleep over any bet. That means you're overextending yourself and you're probably new to this thing because you're going to lose a shit ton of times and still have a chance to be profitable. But just continuing to practice, getting the best of the number in the long run should work out for itself. So don't be discouraged, but also don't be chasing because it didn't really make a difference in a lot of games this week. But there will be instances like Bengals is a great instance. If you were just laying the 3 before the game started because you thought it was a great point, you pushed. If you were looking at the screen all week, you got the 2.5, you won, and vice versa with the Rams. You either lost or you pushed. So the number is the big thing there. So I want to shout out to whoever commented on the video or on Twitter because, great discussion, great debate, and just some things to keep into consideration. But another debating point, I'll keep this one short and sweet because it's obviously a little bit of an overreaction, but I think that the Panthers completely botched by taking Bryce Young. I was high on him. I like his intangibles. I like his mobility. But what we've seen from C.J. Stroud as a pocket passer and Anthony Richardson in limited action as a mobile dual threat quarterback with a live arm, it seems like Carolina botched. Any debate there from you, newbie? Obviously, it's too early to tell. I'm not saying anything definitively, but through 3 weeks, even with the limited action, Bryce didn't even play a whole game near the Richardson, but it looks like Carolina trading up to make this move and not take the right guy. Now they're 0-3. Frank Reich seems to suck. They're getting hurt all over the field. Panthers might be doomed for another year or longer because of this poor decision this offseason. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I also think there's a lot of things at play here, a new head coach as well. But just as far as what's being put on film from the quarterback there, it's hard to disagree that Bryce Young seems like he's a little bit in over his head. Maybe rolling out Andy Dalton a couple more weeks and letting him just sit back and recenter his cheese, so to speak, would be helpful for a guy who really looks like the decision making isn't there, the confidence surely isn't there. So I wasn't a big Bryce Young guy coming out, so I'm not all that surprised to see what's happening against them early. It's why I wasn't high on the Panthers this year, but it's definitely rough when you expect something, you're ready to have a final new start of a new future, and the new future starts off like this, and you don't really even have many building blocks that you can point at and say, well, if he does more of that, there really hasn't been much to be excited about when you're talking about Bryce Young.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's ruled in so I can bet the Vikings before that line moves because now I'm sure it's a little uncertainty right now whether or not he is playing. But I saw the steam go. Like when the market tells you that the quarterback that you subbed out and now subbed in is 1.5 to 2 points better than whoever you sat. That's enough said, and it showed in the tape. I mean, we could again talk about how the Panthers didn't cover. They shot themselves in the foot with a bunch of false starts and penalties when they were, in 3rd and 2, and that moved them to 3rd and 10 and so on, and they were unable to convert. And Dalton threw 300 plus yards. He looked like what they looked for. But again, short and sweet, because I'm not ready to throw in any towels on any quarterback 2 games through their NFL career whatsoever. But the immediate instant reaction is that C.J. Stroud looks great and Anthony Richardson looks unique and potentially very great as well. So we will monitor the situation in Carolina as they maybe a game we'll talk about in more detail on Thursday, TBD. But speaking of Thursday night football, Lambeau Field, Detroit Lions, who deserve credit for their win against Atlanta. Didn't play great, but a win is a win, and they did enough to win that football game. And the Brazilian Packers, once Derek Carr got out of the game, defense shored up big time, and they were able to put up 18 unanswered. Probably should have lost on that last-second field goal. But guess what? They didn't, and I have money on the Packers this season and future, so I'm a very happy guy. Newbie, where's your head go for this matchup to start? Because I think there's just one easy answer for this game, but I want to hear from you first.
Yeah, I am, I guess, a little surprised. I guess I shouldn't be with how much it seems like people are in love with the Lions, but road favorites on a Thursday night football game, a short week, heading on into Lambeau. For what it's worth, Jared Goff has been good against the Packers in his entire career. He's 4-1 straight up when facing them, but this is only the second time in Dan Campbell's tenure that the Lions are laying chalk on the road. The other time that it happened, they lost the game outright by 2 touchdowns. Packers are a team that are 3-0 against the number this season. And sure, you could probably argue that if Derek Carr doesn't go down and Jameis Winston doesn't blow a 17-point lead, are we talking about a different number coming into this game? Maybe so. Also, the Lions were able to stave off that sharp money that was on Atlanta. They made that game not even a little bit close. So this one's a head scratcher for me. I'm surprised, albeit short, -1.5. I think the early lean for me would be on the Packers because all they've done is cover games thus far this year. Also, it being a Thursday night football game, I think automatically I'm going to lean towards the under, getting the Lions offense on the road away from home sweet dome. It seems like that's always a spot where they don't put up as many points. And I know the comments below, well, they won in Arrowhead in week 1, different situation, different kind of Thursday night football game. So early leans for me, I got nothing. And as far as player props, maybe we'll have something on the Thursday show we can throw out, but I lean towards the Packers getting the 1.5. I would probably look towards them in a teaser spot. I'm certainly looking towards the under in this game, which looking like it's sitting right around 45 points. That seems a tick too high with all we know about primetime unders. So early lean on the under, early lean on the Packers. Nothing I pulled out of my pocket to bet just yet. Probably going to look for some props in this one.
Yeah, I think you tease the Green Bay Packers with the Philadelphia Eagles, and you don't think twice about it. Obviously, nothing is.
I'm locking it in.
I'm going to pretend.
You can break it down. I'm going to bet the teaser while you finish breaking that down.
It doesn't really need a ton of explanation. Detroit win at home, unconvincing. I guess you got to credit Atlanta a little bit because they, honestly, because they held Detroit, who scores 30-plus points at home, often to score only 20. Sure, the one touchdown Detroit really had that was a big gain was that kind of broken coverage to Sam Laporta. But if if the Green Bay Packers get their Aaron Jones and Christian Watson back and they're healthy and Bakhtiari's playing and that team is healthy against a Lions team that was not healthy last week, again, deserve all the credit in the world for winning that football game with a lot of those key injuries offensively and defensively. And, they got a lot of pressure on Ritter against this Falcons line. They do have a really good offensive line, so kudos to the Lions for that as well. But Jared Goff on the road as a favorite outside. Again, Lambeau in October is very different than Lambeau in January, but Goff, not a great outdoor quarterback in his career. Road favorite, I think, is a little bit too strong. And while I don't want to take the 1.5 points because I just think that this game is going to be close either way, I am a fan of the Packers plus 7.5 and the Eagles minus 2.5 in a teaser. And one of those, I want to say, keep it simple, stupid. Wong advantage style on both sides. Home favorite down below a field goal. Home favorite up above a touchdown. Enough said for me right there, newbie.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. And you're talking me into betting on my Birds as a home favorite. You don't have to tell me twice. That's been a terrific spot for Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts in his career. So, Eagles home favorite. Tease them on down. Take the Packers up. I just locked it in myself. I'm right there with you. And last one I really have. I know that this is a different team because Aaron Rodgers is gone, so you can probably throw out any of the historical stats, but you can also look at Matt LaFleur is still there. And this is a guy who I think is a little bit better than some. I know that you and I both disagree on that point, but Green Bay under Matt LaFleur, this is only the 4th time you're seeing them as a home underdog. It doesn't happen, them getting points at home in Lambeau. They're 3-0 in those games straight up and against the spread, covering the margin of, or with a 4 margin of victory, winning those games outright and covering the spread by over 6 points in those 3 outings. So it's a small sample size. It's because we don't get points very much with the Green Bay Packers at home in Lambeau. So little stat for you on the way out that you can, take with you or just say, doesn't matter. That's Aaron Rodgers stats.
Yeah, always got to consider that when looking at stats and trends and whatnot. But again, I'm sticking with that teaser option. Probably going to be taking it right when we log off because I don't want to be missing any, because a lot of the books that offer the teaser minus 120, they will shade the numbers in certain situations because, in MGM, if they're offering it minus 130, they don't give a crap if they're hanging those half points. While the DraftKings bet online, they're manipulating it a little bit. But
Yeah,
It'll be a
well,
hell of a
and
show.
even on that DraftKings, as you said, Eagles are already up to 9. So definitely run and grab and find that 8.5 when you're still able to. Just try and find that 7.5 if you can. But they're going quickly on the big sports books.
They're certainly going quickly, so make sure you get in there. Obviously, those lines for the Eagles and just opened up because they closed last night. They finished. I can't speak. They played last night, so the openers are now getting adjusted from the look aheads, and people are betting into them. So market movement immediately, as always, in the National Football League. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Another great show with Newbie and I. We'll be back on Thursday. Same situation, breaking down 5 NFL games at minimum. Looks like this week maybe we might hit a 6 because I'm licking the board a little bit. But TBD. Again, any thoughts, comments, concerns in the comments, debates, anything you want to talk about, let us know in the comments below. Like and subscribe to the 2 best ways to help us grow. And again, promo code GoldSheet on WagerTalk.com, 30-day all access, code GS30, $199. On behalf of Newbie, myself, GoldSheet, and WagerTalk Media, we appreciate you all, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.